They've actually got, I think, the best seat. They get to see everyone. So the last table right in the back are some of the extra special guests that we have this evening. So to you I say Assalamu alaikum and welcome, and thank you for making the time of coming here this evening. We have, alaikum salam. Of course, among the audience we have our donors, supporters, potential supporters. And to you I want to say a special that make the service that we offer the success that we think it is. So to you as well, you're probably seeing me for the first time, I'm probably seeing you for the first time, but I'm in the email, so I know what's going on in the emails between the office and yourselves. So welcome to you and thank you again for joining us. Then of course, towards the front seat, we have Madam Twala Tau, who I may not need to introduce necessarily because the email that went out with a very lovely profile of her, but I'll do the respectful thing later when I introduce you, ma'am, and reintroduce you. But thank you very much for coming through. I was a little worried about 3 or 4 days ago. She said that she's down with a little bit of a cold. You may have seen their names in the invitations that went out originally, and I want to officially welcome them and thank them for joining us in this endeavor. One of the principal partners being Ikra Trust. Although they're based out in KZN, they have tentacles in different parts of the country, and unfortunately they couldn't be here this evening, but they sent their heartfelt congratulations to all of you in the back. Our new partner, inshallah, which we hope will really flourish and take us further. People who've come all the way to, well, they've asked us, how can we help you? Is that still one of the bylines? How can we help you, eh? Yeah. FNB, Islamic Finance. I'm not sure what the new tagline is of Islamic Finance, but they fall under the umbrella of FNB. And we tried to paint the walls blue, but of course we couldn't get away with that. The trustees wouldn't allow us to do that, right? But everything else we tried to keep within the color scheme. But this is in honor and in recognition of the contribution from FNB, Islamic Finance. The CEO is sitting among the humble people, Aman, and we'll introduce him a bit later as well. We have 2 other partners that are in the room, one being the Minara Chamber of Commerce. They have supported this program almost since inception, and we want to acknowledge them as well, and the members that they've invited to be here. And lastly, probably for me the most exciting one going forward in the future, inshallah, is a group, they call themselves the Muslim Professional Network. Young group of people that are trying to facilitate organized work in the community, and they are represented here, and they've also been supporting us throughout the years of this program. So to all of them I want to say a special thank you in the beginning, and I'll repeat my thank you in the end as well. Last year I stood here in front, and I think Aman was round about there anyway, and I had some chocolates in my hand. Incidentally, I ate both the chocolates. Nobody got them. I ate both of them. The one that was, do you remember what the theme was, Aman, offhand? The label, yes, right, yeah. The one that said was grown ethically. The cocoa beans and everything that was processed ethically. And the other wasn't. At least that's just about the same, but of course, the effect in the community and in society is very different. So I don't have any chocolates here. And I was told very clearly that I used up 25 minutes of this year's session last year. I spoke for 45 minutes as an MC. So they've given me very strong notice that I've only got 15 minutes, so I've got to do everything in 15 minutes. So I'm going to do that, inshallah. We're working on a very tight schedule. We're going to try and get to supper between 20 to 7, inshallah. Sorry, 20 to 8. I'm talking tomorrow morning. Okay, 20 to 8. And by about 1:15-ish, we want to have Madam to come forward, maybe a little bit earlier. But you've got roughly that 35-40 minutes to do your salah as well. Salah facilities on the extreme side of this building. And some of the sends of people will guide you for salah. So please hold on for salah in Jamaat at about 8-ish, 10 past 8 on the extreme left of this building. One of the things that I'm at pains with is this whole debate of identity. And what I'm very proud of and very clear on is my identity as a Muslim. And of course, this particular event and this particular function is largely and almost exclusively supported by voluntary donations from within the Muslim community. Ma'am, I don't need to tell you, you are aware of it, they do phenomenal work as a community, and it's part of the institution that is called Zakah, which we carry the label of. Zakah is the equivalent of the tithe in the Christian religion. And so just as an indicator, one organization last year, ourselves, we facilitated, and I use the word very reservedly, we facilitated 70 million rand of donations in 1 year. And I think that is a phenomenal amount of money for one organization. We estimate that in the community annually, it's probably a R1 billion industry. If we combine all the charities of all the Muslim institutions in this country, quite a bit of it in the form of legacy projects, meaning they leave something tangible behind, it's probably about R1 billion. And that excludes what we do on street corners when we give something out of the window to the beggar, what we call the beggar on street corner. That excludes it. So I'm talking official funding going through Islamic and Muslim institutions. I think for a 2%, 2.5% population of this country, that is something that we need to be very, very proud of. And quite a large proportion of that 1 billion is spent in South Africa. And almost all of it is collected from South African Muslims. So I'm not even talking, for instance, and in fact in South Africa there's hardly any of it, foreign donations, if you wish to call them that, from countries, etc., etc. This is money raised and collected in South Africa and distributed in South Africa. Of course, we don't have official figures. I think the Reserve Bank may have official figures of how much gets channeled outside of the country through such reputable organizations as Gift of the Givers, Al-Imdad, etc., etc. They do the kind of work on behalf of South Africa. The most recent one is the cause in Syria. But the South African National Zakah Fund is proud of two things. One is almost 99.9% of our funding is spent in South Africa. So we carry that badge of proudly South African extremely proudly. And number two, we are trying to root ourselves in development and empowerment and education. And I think that is the kind of legacy that we want to leave behind. So I stand here year on year trying to talk to the people who would listen, to tell them that we have many responsibilities in this country. But the legacy that we want to leave behind is the legacy of development, is the hands-up approach. And this is exactly what this particular program is about. Incidentally, and Hassan will give some statistics, up to about end of April, early May this year, this program has been running for about 7 years, and we've probably spent about 15 million rand in the past 7 years on this particular program. Less than 10% of that 17 million has gone into what we would call administration. the majority of that money has gone into the hands of beneficiaries to improve their lot. And I think we're very proud of that fact, that we're striving to get that mix correctly. Of course, entrepreneurship, if you talk to Indians, it's almost part of, it's like the curry, it's like the chilies in the curry that we eat, you know. If it's not there, then we feel that there's something short. Yeah. Surprisingly, South Africa, well, not surprisingly actually, according to the TEA, which is the Total Entrepreneurial Activity Indicator or Index, South Africa ranks extremely low on the entrepreneurship scale. I think our latest our latest rating is about 7%. That means roughly 7% of the population between the ages of 25 and I think 60 or 65 are engaged in what we would call entrepreneurial activity. As compared to, for example, Brazil and India, which is maybe 12%, Colombia at 24%, the States almost 11%. And that is an indicator of where the real growth and the real economy is. And certainly that's where we need to plug ourselves going into the future. This particular survey that I'm reading off sort of segregates the different racial groups, if you wish, in South Africa. And you'll be surprised that Indians as a community are not on the top end of that. The white community of South Africa is at the top end of entrepreneurship and leading entrepreneurship, close to 12–14%, followed of course by the Indian community. And then at the lower end is what they would call the African and colored communities. And I think what is important is we know what's happening in society and in reality in terms of the mining challenges. And we need to find the sector to generate growth and of course contribute to the GDP, etc., etc. And that's why I think SANZEF took this particular route a few years ago to say that we need to morph out of this welfare handout institution to a developmental institution, and we started investing this kind of resources into this community. My time is almost up. And I'm going to ask Hassan to make his way to the podium in the meantime, while I give him a quick introduction. Hassan, we found him a little by accident about 7 or 8 years ago. And I think my first interaction with Hassan was in this particular venue, Hassan. So about 7 or 8 years ago, we were running a 2x2 operation in terms of how to do entrepreneurship. But we recognized that it had a potential to make a difference and change the lives of the people we were working with. So at that stage, we brought in a consultant and 15–20 of our staff, and we ran a almost 3-week program trying to really get to grips with this program. And Hassan has a BCom degree behind him. Besides having a theological degree, he's an alim as well. And I call him a nutter every now and then because he's currently doing his MBA. And on any typical night, and Hassan, don't give out your cell number tonight, but on any typical night, if you call Hassan 8, 9 o'clock at night, you'll hear a lot of traffic in the background. And Hassan, where are you? He says, no, I'm visiting so-and-so because we need to give their business approval by tomorrow. So he's somewhere in Orange Farm or somewhere in Yeovil or somewhere or the other, verifying the facts and the truth. So Hassan come through. So Hassan runs the entrepreneurship program. He's the HOD of the program, and he'll give you a little bit more insight and information on how he runs his program. But really, he is the engine behind this particular program. And Hassan, welcome to you. Thank you.